Okay.
All right, JJ Alcoholic, recovery date July 29th, 2007. Um, Home group's the 12 Steps to Peace group in Bristol, Connecticut. And thank you for the opportunity. For whatever reason today, I'm nervous. I have no idea why. I guess it's God shaking the truth out of me, so we'll see what happens. Um, Step five, the meaning for me, it's changed over, these last 16 years. Um, when I came in to my first meeting, I had my head down, chip on my shoulder, just mad at the world. Um, no idea I had, what I was up against. I just thought I had a high tolerance for alcohol and drinking was my problem. When I drank, things happened. Um, so went to that first meeting. Um, everyone reached out to me, you know, said keep coming back, do a 90 and 90. They gave me a schedule book with a bunch of names and numbers on it, but I had no idea who these people were. I was 20 years old. I'm not picking up the phone and calling you people I don't know. I had no idea. Nobody explained to me the urgency that needed to happen. Um, so for a little while, I was just white knuckling it, trying to do what they were telling me to do. I got service commitments, making coffee, going to as many meetings as I could. Still did not have an understanding of what it meant to be alcoholic. I just raised my hand because everyone else did, you know, and I had to fit in. So I was working with one guy, you know, he gave me the book. He said, read the first 164. And I asked that man to sponsor me because I already knew him. He was one of my dad's guys. I've worked with him on summer vacations. So it was pretty easy to just to ask him. I didn't really know what his job was, but he gave me the book, said read the first 164 and we'll meet. And I would only read the book when I was pissed off because here I am in Connecticut and I got a girlfriend in Florida and I'm trying to manage and direct that, miles apart. So I got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, thinking with this reservation I had that I would just learn how not to do that, what I was doing for a year, go back and live happily ever after. And obviously that didn't happen. So the alcoholic mind starts telling me, well, I need to find someone that I can relate more to, someone more my age. Right. So the alcoholism's already working. And so I find someone that's closer to me, we're about the same age. So he's giving me printouts off the internet, which is I'm just looking up definitions of what insanity is and things like that. And there was no, again, I wasn't really learning anything. It was like, here, go complete this, like it was homework. So I get some news from back home, really set me off. It says resentment's the number one offender. Obviously, I didn't know that at the time, but it was ready to send me back out. So I asked this gentleman that was starting to take the guy that was supposedly sponsoring me through the work, who had went back out. I asked him to take me through, and he was like, I really don't want to, but if you're serious, we'll go to my house right now. So I left that Thursday night meeting where I was making coffee, asked someone to clean up for me, which they happily did, and I started the journey. And it's important, that I understand what my condition is to even find out, if I am the real deal or not. You know, um, I had no clue what it meant to be alcoholic. I just thought I drank too much, and when I drank too much, I got into fights, and I had run-in with the cops and fights with the girls, and I'm crashing work trucks and I'm losing jobs and things like that. That's just the consequences to my drinking. That stuff doesn't make me alcoholic. Um, this man, all he did was read the words in the book and he gave me his experience with what it meant. And I started matching up to his experiences with my own, of what happens, because if I don't have the physical factor, I'm incomplete. So what happens when I put alcohol in my system? I developed this craving. It's not a high tolerance. It's, I drank until I passed out. And if I was drinking and it was no longer being satisfied, I'm looking for more. So if I was out fishing, cooler's full. Once it's out, it sucks. Pack it up. We got to go. We'd be at the beach having a great day. Once I start drinking, you know, I turn it into a shit show. Um, so I start looking at these things. I'm going to the movie theater with two tall boys in my pant leg. Halfway through the movie, I walk out the fire exit door to go to the store to get more, walk back through the front, show my ticket, sit and watch the rest of the movie, thinking I'm cool, but my body physically needed it. So I'm going through this process with this man, and I start understanding, like, I am not like other people. I am not like my grandfather who comes home just to take the edge off, who has two, eats dinner, watches Seinfeld, goes to bed. you know, I'm not like my friend Tony, who's a hard drinker. He could party hard with all of us, and then, he can take it or leave it. He doesn't even drink anymore. So I conceded to my innermost self at that point, yeah, I'm the real deal. I'm not like other people. I can't drink, like normal people. And normal people don't wake up trying to decide whether they're going to drink or not. They just wake up, probably go to the bathroom, brush their teeth, get ready for work, and on with their day. And then the second step, in the beginning, it was more of I was just willing to believe. I was praying, God, make it work, make it work, make it work. And then finally I just said, God, let it be what you want it to be with that relationship. And 7 o'clock the next morning, I got my answer. She called, said I can't do it anymore. So now I jump in with both feet. And the hang up for me, and this ties into step 5, is because my first understanding of that third step was, I just say that third step prayer. And that was me turning my will and my life over. I had no idea about the stuff that was laid out in 60 to 63 on what I would be looking for in a fourth step. So when I go in and just say the prayer thinking I'm turning it over, I do the next right thing. That's me turning my will and my life over. And I have no clue what that means, how I do it. And I go into a fourth step, without any clue on what I'm looking for. So I go write the inventory the best I can. I was confused on the third and fourth column. And when I got to that fifth step, it felt like a confession. It says, yeah, we discuss it with ourselves, someone else, and God. And it just felt like a confession. And I just read down the list, and the guy asked if there was anything else. And it's right at the tip of my tongue, but it wouldn't come out. And I said, nope. You sure? Yep. And he explained the hour in the fifth step, and I lasted about 5-10 minutes with that. I didn't do the full hour, and I tried to continue on with the rest of the program for 3 years. And I was still restless, irritable, discontent, thinking I was doing the deal. The importance, like the book says, it talks about, I only thought I lost my egoism and fear. I thought I humbled myself, but I didn't. I didn't get that one piece of shame out, and I held that back. And, for 3 years, I thought I was doing the deal. I thought I was out there carrying a message, trying to sponsor people, but every time that thought came up, that piece of shame, I tried to shove it back down, to where it wouldn't see the light of day. And, next time through the work, it was from a couple from Texas. They were at the Wilson house, and, this woman just hit it home on 60 to 63. The root of my problem is selfishness, self-centeredness, and how I show up, and I try to manipulate people into doing what I want so I can get my way, so I can feel all right. And I could see in my life how I was showing up just from her talking. So I made another surrender in that third step, that it wasn't the surrender to alcohol, because I was living based off not drinking. There's the second surrender of surrendering to self, that my life is no longer none of my business. And how do I do that? I step down from management. Now I'm human. I'm not the greatest, I'm going to fall short. you know, so I stepped down from management and now I really understand what I'm looking for in this fourth step. It's this manifestations of self. And it shows up mainly in my resentments, my fears, and my sex conduct. And so now when I go into that inventory, of course I know who I'm pissed at and why I'm pissed at them. It's easy because when you piss me off, I'll tell everybody. So then everyone's on my side of the team, just like I would do when I was out there drinking. So that's simple. It's not hard to write those first two columns. It's the third column that I never looked at, disregarding that stuff entirely and looking in the third column and saying, well, why does it affect me? What was hurt, threatened, or interfered with? So I could see how, my self-esteem's affected and how I think people should view me or how I should be respected, and then I'm looking at, my personal relations and my ambitions on how, these are the things I want, to happen. And people are getting in the way of that, and then when I do that prayer and go into the fourth column, and seeing how I showed up, my behaviors, my actions, that led these people to do that, how I stepped on people's toes, and that's the hard part to swallow. The freedom in the second time I did the fifth step, I understood that the whole point of these exercises is to get me unblocked, right? It's to have this new relationship with this power, whatever that is, to have a new attitude. The importance with the fifth step, and for me, when I sponsor guys, is I'm going to go as quick as, they're moving. Like it doesn't take that long for me when I'm working with people. I do it right out of the book, but back in the, the first step and it says a vital spiritual experience is what's going to, I need a vital spiritual experience, vital, essential to life. I need that to live, not just stay sober, but to live. So if I need a vital spiritual experience in the fifth step, it says this is where I begin to have that spiritual experience. So in the fifth step, that's where I begin to have it. And then the drink problem disappears. It's a promise. Right. So why would I want to hold somebody back? And that's from the experience I learned because I didn't get there that, with that urgency in the beginning. So if the fifth step is where this vital spiritual experience can happen, I think it's pretty important that, we move things along with some urgency. It's like triage. And, so I go through this fifth step, again. And it was about a week later after that retreat. And this time I got it all out. I got that one piece of shame out. And the gentleman shared with me, the stuff that was similar to what I shared with him, and all he said was, is that it? And I'm like, that's it. And we just kept on moving. The freedom that comes from sharing with another person, it's so easy for me to take a self-appraisal, but it doesn't work. And I've done it, it's 7 years, 9 years, most recently 4 years ago, where I'm doing this back to self-reliance. I'm the power and the mind's telling me, well, you're not drinking, so you're good. Yet it's telling me at the same time, 11 o'clock at night, driving home from my second job, just cross that yellow line and smash into that truck. That's where the alcoholism takes me. The self-sufficiency, it's easy. I could see it on paper, and that's where I run into problems. The alcoholism's like, oh, you know what it is, same people, same behavior, same stuff, so it fools me into not wanting to share, so it becomes life and death of the ego at that point. I don't want to let people in, and that's a whole defect of character because since I was, a small kid, I always built up the walls. You're not going to hurt me. And, so when I go and share this step with this guy and I get it all out and I'm hitting specifically on my behaviors, that there writes the sixth step for me on how I'm self-reliant, I'm arrogant, self-righteous, I'm controlling, I'm manipulative. Um, you know, I'm always looking for validation. I need the pat on the back so I can feel okay. You know, this is all the stuff that came out in this fifth step. Um, you know, when I left there, those promises had come true. You know, it says I have to, you know, shine light on all the nooks and crannies. You know, and if I'm holding on to that piece of shame, I ain't shining light on all those nooks and crannies. You know, there's still a piece of self that I was holding on to. And now that I let it all out, there was a true freedom, a true wholeness. Now I left that fifth step whole. I felt the nearness of my creator. I felt the drink problem had disappeared. And I was driving down Route 8 and the sun was setting, and I'll never forget it. And I'm tearing up and I'm driving and I'm thanking God from the bottom of my heart, you know. And I went home, you know, and to me, the fifth step, you know, the hour after the fifth step to me is, you know, very important today. Because the first time I did it for 5 or 10 minutes, that time I set a timer and I did the full hour contemplating, you know, those first 5 proposals. Am I truly the real deal? Do I have the physical craving? Do I have the mental obsession? You know, do I believe, am I still holding on to reservations? You know, have I fully conceded to my innermost self that I am powerless over alcohol and my life is unmanageable? You know, that unmanageability, you know, if I look at the fourth and fifth, that was me managing my life. I'm trying to manage the personal relationships, my emotional nature, you know, and that's why I'm prey to misery and depression. And I wasn't happy and I was full of fear. Couldn't be of real help to other people. Right. So do I believe that? Am I just still willing to believe in a power bigger than me? Or do I now believe in this power? How can I not believe in the power with the experience I had just had in a fifth? And I have an experience every time. He shines light so I can have a new experience and get closer to him. And that's the whole purpose, to get a new attitude and a new relationship with that creator. And in that last 5 minutes of that hour, I had something else pop up. I pick up the phone, call him. I said, this is what came up. We ran through the columns and continued on with the process. You know, but the 1 hour afterward, you know, is important. It really helps set those things in stone. Like, have I really turned my will and my life over? You know, or is there certain spots I'm still trying to manage? You know, is it all out in the fourth? Did I discuss it all in the fifth? And you know, I think from this point I'm going to talk about, you know, what it's like after having some experience, you know, being around for a little bit. You know, I talk about the self appraisals because it's so hard to talk about one step because it ties to all the rest of the steps. You know, when I go and make my 8 step list, it, most of it comes from my 4th step, and the harms that were caused come from that 4th column in the 4th step. You know, I'm admitting my wrongs for my exact natures, you know, so for 8 and 9. And then it also shows up in the 11th step when I'm reviewing my day. So if I'm reviewing my day, which is pretty much taking that inventory and looking at, you know, those behaviors, you know, if I keep all this stuff to myself all the time, for me, it starts to snowball. And my experience has been I work backwards. You know, I can hang my hat up on always being available to sponsor people or be helpful, but my prayer life starts, you know, going down to where the alcoholism, my mind is like, I know what I need to do. And by the time I get home, I don't do it. So when I'm not getting close to him, I start working backwards and I'm not talking to people. So now I'm taking my own inventory, doing a self appraisal, and I'm living a double life, like it says in the 5th step. You know, I've lived that double life. You know, I could show up at a meeting, I could sound really good, And I used to be really rigid, this is the way and there's no other way. And I was keeping all this stuff to myself because I could look really good in the community in recovery, but when I get home, they don't know who's walking through the door. Everyone's walking on eggshells. Um, and I'm a whole different person at work. Um, I'm a whole different person when I'm working, for myself on the side. You know, I'm very helpful to the people in recovery, but to other people that are close to me, I'm not so helpful. And this is how I was living, and living this double life, and it was kicking my ass. And I had to be broken down. That was the experience I had to have. I'm not saying everyone needs it, but that's what I needed. I guess I needed a lot of pain and suffering to wake up again. Um, because the whole time through that process, I know well enough, I got to write inventory and all that stuff. But what's happened in the past is I would write inventory to get new information, not to have a new experience. So I'm just going to get some more new information about how I am, just enough so I can go make amends to try to turn the heat down, and hopefully it'll stick. It wasn't really for a new experience. So I'm using, we got this false dependency, on the steps, and it's just so I can get more knowledge about myself. And it wasn't really to have an experience to be a better person, you know. And during that process, my mind's telling me, well, look at all you do. You're a great provider. Um, you're a great worker. Um, Look at everything you do for your house. Look at the house you got. All the stuff this AA life's given me was the same stuff that was going to take me out, and it's feeding me all this bullshit of, you know, well, you ain't drinking, you're doing all right. It ain't that bad. And it was so difficult to get back into the groove. And then when I knew I had to write inventory, my mind's like, why? It's the same people and the same stuff. The same people and the same stuff. And finally, luckily, I was at a Jersey Shore roundup. Got some information. Really kind of set me off, and I was full of resentment, anyways. And I was a lot closer to a drink than I thought I was. But that's because it was the way I planned and designed it to be. Everything I had going in my life was going the way I wanted it to go, and it was a complete disaster from living a double life. And got that info. I walked into this hotel lobby, and it's that woman from Texas again, and it's just me and her in the lobby, and she comes at me strong with, out of love and compassion, but she is lighting me up, giving me the instructions and all that and what to do. And I ended up writing another 4-step, which was a little different this time. And I did a multiple 5th step, and I got, it was the same people and the same stuff, but it was a whole new experience. How can I doubt that power? And I do that 5th, and I have a whole new 6th list. We think we knock down these, defects of character or whatever, and then you get 10 more that pop up. That's been my experience. Things I'm just asleep to, and then I got to get woken up to. But there's a true freedom that comes from sharing with that, sharing that with somebody else. I've had guys call me, after that hour, and they're like, I'm not delighted. I am not delighted. Well, that's normal too. Especially if you got a sponsor, that's going to rub your face in selfishness and self-centeredness, and that's the people I got when I'm in a 5th step. I have this perception on what I think it looks like, and then they throw out, is it possible? Is it possible this is how it's going, or this is, what you're doing, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, it's possible. because I only have one perception on it. And that's why it's important. Someone who's armed with the facts about themselves and has the experience, when I sit with someone that listen to my fifth, they come at it from an entirely different angle with things I don't even consider, and there's true freedom and all that. Just reading the book here. No, but that pretty much sums it up from some of my experience, with having some time in recovery. Um, it's I think that's pretty much it for me. Um, it's step 5. It's hard to talk about one step. I mean, to me, they're all connected. That 4 through 9 process is one we're recovering. And it's into action right there. It's course vigorous action. So, trying to just stick to the one step, but it's difficult. But that's all I got. Thank you.